Greetings, Africans on the continent, and greetings to global Africa. This is King H. There's a hot article that's going on the social media. Mali protestants demand withdrawal of French troops from the country. The people of Mali are protesting against the military of France, against the government of France. They want the government of France to take their military out of Mali. But that's not the only issue. Africa needs French government to take out their military from Africa and everything that has to do with France. You see, Africans, you must learn to understand that you cannot depend on another race to do what you must do to improve on the lives of Africans. The great Marcus Garvey said this: any leader that teaches you to depend on another race is the leadership that is going to enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend on another race is the leadership that is going to enslave you. What has the African leaders in the past 100 years? Let me take that back. What has African leaders in the past 60 years been doing? They have been making deals, especially when it comes to military deals, to other nations, especially nations that colonized them, to do their military activities within the continent of Africa. You could see that with many French African nations having military from France in their country. Colonization has been over. We're supposed to be a free nation, which means that us as a people, African people, must solve their issues by themselves without involving outside parties like France or Britain or any other nation. But our African leaders have been doing the same thing over and over, making deals with French nations or with Britain, especially military deals that involve killing of African lives. We don't want the military of France in Africa. We don't want the military of Britain in Africa. We don't want no other military besides African military in Africa, because Africans must learn to solve their own problems. So long as they decide to rely on outside influences to solve the issues of Africa would never be solved, because those coming in, they're coming in to make money. So long as they prolong the wars happening within the continent of Africa, they make more money, because those leaders who have decided to sign deals, military deals with other nations or Western nations, have to be paid. The African nations must pay the Western nations that they have signed those military deals with. So, this also causes lack of jobs within African people. If you have African military men and women solving the issues of Africa without any aid or without any military aid from Western nations, that will involve more jobs, and the African people will have the opportunity to have a better life. But so long as you bring outside military forces to come and solve issues in Mali, in Niger, in Mauritania, in Burkina Faso, and so forth and so on, the issues will never get solved. More people will die, and the war continues. We Africans must learn to solve our own issues. Because if we don't, then we will depend on other races to solve our issues. But Malians and all other nations in Africa must organize. They must organize under Pan-Africanism. We are a people, we are one people, we are Africans. There's no need to still be under the system of the Berlin Conference. We are weak as nations within African continent because of the separation of little states, whereby colonized nations benefit from the system that they placed in Africa. Only through unity and understanding that we Africans are one people and must work under Pan-Africanism and unity of Africans in order for us to see our true potential. But so long as we keep having Mali protesting, so long as we have Togo protesting, so long as we have these other nations within Africa protesting without putting the voice together as Africans, a solid foundation, without connecting the dots, without organizing as Africans, as Pan-Africans, our problems will never be solved. Our issues will never be solved. The war going on in Niger and across West Africa with Islamic fighters or whatever, jihadis, whatever you want to call it, would not stop. Because if it does stop, then nations like France will not benefit from the war that is going on in Africa. And in order for Mali to be able to kick France out, the youths of Mali must connect with other African nations. That is the key. We must nourish our power as one Africa. As the United States of Africa, we must do that. It's the foundation that we must lay and grow in order for the world to respect us as a people. Because no nation in this world respects us. We as Africans must demand that. If we don't, the issues that is going on in Africa will continue to go on. Will continue. It will never end unless we decide to come together and make sure that this stops. But it's a good move protesting against France. And as you've noticed, many nations in Africa are standing up against the imperialism of France. And we must do that. We must stop France and the exploitation of France in Africa. It must stop. But there's another thing I wanted to add. The leadership of Africa may think that going through the route of using Russia will help counterbalance the European imperialism, but that's not true, because Russia is out to also reap their own benefit in Africa. And by doing so, they'll bring other partners, like Turkey trying to send its military in Gaddafi's nation. I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, the fact is this: Russia is no different from any nations from the West is the same system. Is to divide and conquer and exploit. But if Africans don't unite, we will never be able to solve these issues that we face as a people. We must solve this issue, because if we don't, we will suffer continuously. This is King H. Till next time.